I've got to share this with you. In early December, I was doing this show like I always do, and I was talking about what freedom and liberty means, right? Freedom and liberty. A woman has a right to control her own body. People have a right to get married to who they want to get married to. I don't care if they're both of the same sex. People have a right to smoke reefer in their living room if they want to smoke reefer. They got freedom and liberty to smoke a fifth of Jim Beam. They got freedom and liberty to smoke reefer. Right? You can't drink and drive. You can't smoke reefer and drive. Same thing. You can't take OxyContin and drive, Rush Limbaugh. Right? So freedom and liberty means options and choices. Freedom and liberty means options and choices. You cannot chant the slogan, Sarah Palin. You cannot chant the slogan, Ted Cruz, freedom and liberty, and then not allow anyone to have freedom and liberty. Just because people use their freedom and liberty to exercise options and choices that you, puritanical church lady, wagging your finger in our faces with your moral snottiness, just because you don't approve of our options and choices doesn't mean you get to take them away, Sarah Palin and Ted Cruz and Republican Party Bible thumpers. If you're going to believe in freedom and liberty, then believe in freedom and liberty. And part of freedom and liberty means that when the end of our lives are near, and each one of us, look, no one gets out of this thing alive. When the end of life comes, if we find ourselves in a circumstances where our bodies are giving out and there's only a little bit of time left and we're in a lot of pain, we should have the Dr. Kevorkian, way out. That's part of freedom and liberty. It's part of personal liberty. And Robert, his name, Mitton, M-I-T-T-O-N, that is his real name. I've been calling him Robert M. His real name is Mitton, and that's why the M, M-I-T-T-O-N. Now, some people would say mitten, like wearing something in the wintertime, but it's pronounced Mitton. Robert contacted us. He heard that. He was listening on AM 760 out of Denver, and he called up, and he was telling us his story. He's one of those guys. His body's failing. He's just, got a little bit of time left. We've tried to keep him in his apartment. He was at risk of getting thrown out, being evicted and dying on the streets. We did a little fundraiser for him. This community, the Norman Goldman Show community, you are awesome. People were sending money. We've been sending him money. My wife and I sent him some money to keep him in his apartment. He's been doing some work for us. You can see it on our Facebook page, the Norman Goldman Show on Facebook. Robert's designed apps for us. They're on the Facebook page right now. Well, Robert called our show and told his story. And since then, he's been getting more and more notoriety. And tomorrow morning, he'll be on the front page of the New York Times. And the New York Times article is on the website now, and it's on our Facebook page right now. And Robert Mitton, thanks for being with us once again.
Hi, Norm. How you doing?
Robert, I am well. Now, when you first contacted us, had you been making any efforts? You contacted us in early December. You called us at 1-888-321-6001, and you started talking to us about your heart is giving out, and you're near the end of life, and you want the option to go out on your terms, pain-free, when you choose to. Had you done anything before that to advocate for this issue about dying with dignity?
All I had been doing is just self-steaming, just nothing with anybody else, no interaction or anything, and just getting more and more bummed out about the situation. Then I was listening to you on the air, and you became the catalyst. I decided to speak out and call you, and then one thing led to another. I made a comment to Eric, the reporter for the New York Times, because he just did an article about the New Mexico situation of dying with dignity, and I commented that, it's pretty ironical that I'm here in Colorado and can't have the same rights. And then before I knew it, he contacted me back, and we started talking, and he actually flew out from New York to Denver to do this interview with me, and I couldn't believe it. And so, Norm, you were the catalyst to all this, to make this happen, and I'm so appreciative, and I feel really good about this. I feel kind of sort of empowered because I'm going to try to make as much of a stand on this as I possibly can these last couple of months while I'm here. And like I mentioned to you the other day, I already got a meeting with the staff of Senator Bennett, and I'm trying to get meetings and things else going. And I'm just going to try to do as much as I can on this situation as possible. I've been advocating for the legalization of marijuana. I've been heavily involved in the background of doing that since 1990, and I kind of dropped off the map the last year or two since everybody else has been, doing a good job fighting for it. So this is going to be my last stand and my last call. And so I would like to ask all your listeners to think very deeply about this subject. And what you people are going to do on your behalf to help make a change in this situation? Or are you going to wait until you're in a situation like I am and be stuck? Let's speak out and make change across the United States while we have the chance.
Well, Robert, there's a picture of you in this New York Times article. There's a picture of you and your cat. And, and your real name is out there now, so you gave me permission to use your real name. What is it that I can do, that somebody listening in their car or at home right now, what can they do to advocate for the freedom and liberty that you want so that you can leave this world on your own terms when you decide that time has come? What can we do to move this along?
Well, the answer is obvious. Vote often, vote every chance you can, and get a hold of every one of your elected officials, both state, national, city, and try to get this changed. Because the more people that talk about this, to bring this out in the open, to make other people think about it, the more the change is going to come. We already have 5 states now that made it legal. So that's a huge stepping stone. Things are going to follow in place, just like gay marriage and all the other things, medical marijuana. It's all following stepping stones. We have the stepping stones of the 5 states now: New Mexico, Montana, Vermont, Washington, and Oregon. So let's hope we got a couple more states coming on board before this year is over. Hopefully Colorado will get their act together in the next couple of years. Definitely nothing's going to happen as far as anything to affect my situation. I'm basically on my own on this because of the way I have to handle it and speak out and everything. I'm not willing to starve myself to death like has been suggested. But I feel strong about this situation. We need to make change.
Robert, I've been corresponding with doctors who listen to our conversations and write me emails to norman@normangoldman.com, and they've been saying, why doesn't he just starve himself? And I've been writing back saying, why should he have to starve himself? He likes food. Why? I mean, the man, and they say, well, he stops drinking water, you can swab his mouth. I'm like, why does this have to be his one and only option? I mean, why can't, look, Philip Seymour Hoffman went out with a needle in his arm. I mean, why can't you give him the Dr. Kevorkian? And I think, Robert, we're starting to turn these doctors around, which is an important thing. But why are you meeting with Senator Bennett? What do you want the United States government to do on this?
They make laws. So we need to make a new law, and we got to get the bug in his ear. I won't get to meet with him personally, but I get to meet with 2 of his staff, and one of them is part of the medical advisory team for the senator. So it's just another plant a bug in the ear, and that's all I can really hope to do is just plant these bugs in as many ears as possible. I'm not going to be able to twist anybody's arm or anything and make change or, be able to go into his office and write a new law or anything, but this is just one step towards making the change happen.
Well, Robert, your picture is in the article. Your cat's picture is there with you. It's a terrific article. I'm really proud of you. You're exactly the kind of person that I was hoping we could find, somebody whose personal story, they would have the courage to step up and say, here I am, and recognize me. I'm really proud of you. I'm really glad you called us, and I'm really glad you're on the front page of the New York Times now. So, Robert, thank you so much. And your article is on our Facebook page right now, the Norman Goldman Show. So, Robert, I've got to move along, but of course we'll stay in touch and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Norm, very much, and have a great weekend.
Robert, thank you very, very much. And there you go. You can read the article. It's on our Facebook page, The Norman Goldman Show on Facebook. It is the lead thing. I'm going to leave it there as long as I can. And let's talk to Rick in Los Angeles. Hiya, Rick.
Hey, how are you, Norman?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to commend you for bringing Robert's story to the limelight. And, I think one day we're going to look back on with this whole Death with Dignity movement and realize how stupid we were to force people to live in, utter pain and needlessly, suffer in their last days of their life.
Rick, we put our dogs and cats to sleep, and congratulate ourselves. You know, when they're at the end. I mean, I've cried many tears. My wife and I, we've had to put dogs and cats to sleep, and we've cried, and it's horrible. But we've done it because they're dying and they're in agony, and we're not going to drag them through any more of that. You know, it's a delicate calculation. When is the time? Everybody who's had to put a dog or a cat or a rabbit or a bird or something to sleep, I mean, everybody knows what I'm talking about. That, you know, when do you know? And it's a horrible thing, but we do it to our animals, and we congratulate ourselves on our compassion, but yet we force each other to go through misery at the end of life. It's insane.
Yeah, it's totally insane. And this brought back to me the Ninth Circuit decision back in, I think, I don't know if it was 2004 or 2002. It went up to the Supreme Court where Ashcroft and then Gonzalez was trying to prosecute Oregon doctors for helping their patients, you know, give them fatal doses of medication to, you know, end their life if they were, you know, chronically, or I should say, terminally ill.
And I remember it, if I remember right, correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, the Supreme Court said there is no constitutional right to die with dignity.
I think they did, but I think that they did rule in favor of the of Oregon. They upheld.
Well, they said the states
Oregon
can do
statutes.
it. They said the states can do it if they want to, but there is no federal, you know, like we're talking about now with marriage equality, that kind of thing. There's no, it's like with abortion. The Supreme Court said there is a federal constitutional guarantee that applies to all the states. What they said was there is no federal constitutional personal liberty right in a right to die with dignity. But if the states want to do it, that's fine. The states can do it. But if the states don't want to do it, the states don't have to do it. And you, of course, know that Oklahoma and Mississippi and, you know, all these Bible thumping states, they ain't never going to do it.
Oh, God forbid. That would be like a, you know, cardinal sin. You know?
Because God would be very upset.
You got it.
And they know. Well, Rick, you know, look, I have to say that when I was in law school, one of my professors was into this death with dignity movement. I had never really thought about it, but I really enjoyed this professor. He was a very smart man, and I became friends with him, and he kind of talked me through this, and I was like, you know, he's right. And so I've always been interested in this, but to me, it's just part of, I mean, I'm not going hog wild on it, but I mean, I'm not Jack Kevorkian. However, it's part of the it's part of the package of personal freedoms that we are allowed to have.
Yeah, it's the freedom and liberty agenda, you might call it. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. And if Bill Maher can smoke a bale full of hay that's not hay, and it's reefer in his living room, I mean, look, if a woman has a right to control her own body, look, I have a right to control my own body. I mean, Robert Mitton has a right to control his own body, and if it means at the end of life you've got a right to control your own body, I mean, Dr. Kevorkian, who's no longer with us, but if he were still with us, he ought to be able to go visit Robert Mitton and say, here's the cocktail.
Absolutely,
Take it
man.
when you're ready.
Yeah.
Rick, I got to run, but I really appreciate it, and I thank you for the kind words. And, you know, look, my job is to advocate. I'm a lawyer. It's what I do. I advocate. And when I was advocating for clients in the courtroom, I was advocating for clients in the courtroom. Now I'm advocating for public policy positions here. It's what I do. You get to do it next, right here where justice is served.
Thanks a lot, Norm.
And Paul in Woodinville, Washington. Thanks for being on the Norman Goldman Show.
Hold on a second, Norm.
Hey, you're playing music. You're a music guy.
Are you kidding me?
Paul, what's up?
Hey, listen, first I want to say to Robert, congratulations for the getting, well, congratulations first of all, for standing up and having courage to call the show. And back in December, we all recognized how down he felt. And you know what? He's got courage. He had the courage to reach out, and now he's in the lead, and he has to. I mean, I see him as being a leader now because he had the courage to reach out, and I know how much pain he's in. I mean, personally, I don't, but I understand. But you know, don't waste the suffering, man. Just be the leader. You're in that position now, and be a role model. Come through for us and help us discover what it is.
Well, he is now, and you're right, Paul, he is now in a position where he can sensitize a lot of people and educate a lot of people to a dilemma that so many of us are going to face, and many of us have already faced, and he can leave a legacy. I mean, look, his time is his time. You and I have whatever time we've got. We can use our time to party and to enjoy ourselves and to live a life of the flesh, or we can use our time to leave a legacy. Now, many people, of course, want to lead a life of the flesh, and they can leave a legacy. But Robert, was sitting there in his apartment in Denver, listening to our show in early December. He was just feeling terrible and feeling despondent. And then he heard something I said about, death with dignity as part of freedom and liberty, picked up the phone, got on the air, and it's all, gone from there. Now the guy's on the front page of the New York Times. And I think it's fantastic. But you're right. He's now in a position where he can raise consciousness and move this issue forward and leave a really powerful legacy.
Well, and the other thing is about being a real leader is that he doesn't know where we're going either. I mean, it's kind of like it's all new territory for him too, and that's the other thing that people got to realize this about those of us with disabilities and those of us who have these serious illnesses. This is the first time we've been through it too. So we're all going through this new. It's all new for him. My disability is new for me. But it's having look at what he rallied in terms of, love and support by reaching out for for some understanding. Really, is what he's reaching out for.
Right.
And now he's got it. But now he's kind of in. We got to put him in the front, to lead us to what is it you are going to discover. And I know the suffering is there. He's
got to lead the parade now. I mean, he's at the front of the parade. Now he's got to lead the parade.
That's right.
All right, Paul, thank you so much for the call. I really appreciate you being part of the team, and I've got time for you straight ahead.